Okay, so my name's Kim Evans, and I'm a nurse practitioner, and I'm really, really happy to be here. So I just did this session for the previous time, and it went really well. So hopefully we'll have it go well again. And I found a guy out here, thanks to Mike.
And yes, good friend.
Yes. He recommended that Linda give me a call.
Yeah.
So it's a pleasure to be here. How many have, obviously you have an interest in integrative medicine because you're at this session. How many are doing some holistic integrative modalities? Great. How many of you are just to be curious about what you can do? Great, great, great. So, because this is an area I feel is kind of overlooked in conventional medicine, and as healthcare continues to get crazier and crazier, it seems like our appointment times are shorter and shorter, and the times to explore some other modalities are less and less. So I applaud everybody for being here today. Thank you so much. We'll go through the information, and then, please feel free. We want to make it very informal, so if you have questions along the way, please feel free to address those questions. And then I'll stick around if you have other questions at the end. So I live here in town, so I'm not on any schedule today. So, speaking of which, though, I do want to say this. Do we have any Walt Disney World fans? So it looks like I left them in the other room. I had a couple tickets for tonight's showing of the Little Merman, and it's actually being shown downtown here. It's the rock group that plays all the Disney music. So there's 4 tickets. If you're interested, they're free tickets. So if you're interested, see me afterwards, and I'm happy to give it to you. So. All right. So this, he likes to move around on the slide, I've noticed. Because last night and this morning, his picture was in the right-hand corner. But he moved in the projector connection in the other room a little bit, and now he really wants you to see his picture.
What does he like?
But anyway, this quote, he's a physician from the 1800s. And I love this quote, and I think we've gotten too far away from this. But it says, it's much more important to know what sort of patient has a disease than what sort of disease a patient has. And this is what I think, in conventional medicine that sometimes gets missed. We forget to look at the individuality of the person, because nobody's body system is the same as anyone else's. Everybody is unique, and everybody's body system is different. So that has to be addressed. So anyway, hopefully it's not going to mess up some of the other slides. Don't quit. Don't quit on the devil. Okay, so when you look at integrative medicine, it's important that everybody starts with the common definition so we know where we're all starting from. How many of you have heard of Dr. Andrew Weil?
Andrew Weil?
Yes. Yes. Great, great, great. He is considered the start and beginning of integrative medicine. He created a fellowship, and he's trained thousands of physicians and nurse practitioners now across the country in integrative medicine. So the definition that they use at the University of Arizona is this one that I love. Integrative medicine is defined as healing-oriented medicine that takes into account the whole person, body, mind, and spirit, including all aspects of lifestyle. It emphasizes the therapeutic relationship, and that is big key, Because so many times, you know, your health should be a partnership with your provider, not just that you go in passively and just accept everything that the provider tells you to do. It should be a partnership and a dialogue. And it emphasizes this therapeutic relationship and makes use of all therapies, both conventional and alternative. And this is important because I feel like there's many more tools in the toolbox besides just medicine or surgery. Yet that's where our predominant focus in conventional medicine is on medicine or surgery. So, would you agree?
Yes.
So when we look at an integrative model, there's many components, but these are some of the components that I think are the most important. As I said, a patient is a partner in their care. So when I see patients, I create a treatment plan, and then we sit down and I talk to the person about this treatment plan and make sure that they are on board, they're going to agree with it, or maybe they have some other information that makes some of the treatment plan not correct for that person. So we come up with it together as a partnership. And then also non-traditional therapies then are embraced with what we call an open-minded skepticism. And literally we embrace all therapies like this, whether it's conventional or non-conventional. Because let's face it, how many times do drugs come on the market and then 6 or 8 years later, oh whoops, we're finding there's too many side effects, we need to take these off the market. So, you know, we should approach everything with an open-minded skepticism and just see how that's going to land for your body, your mind, your soul, your health. Because it may be different than how it lands for someone else. And then the whole person care is centered around including everything, body, mind, spirit, and emotions. So when we look at the whole picture and approach it from a holistic nature or integrative model, then what we're trying to do is create a balance in the body, mind, and spirit. Because all are important. I mean, let's face it, nothing can happen to you physically that doesn't affect you psychologically and emotionally. And there's many times that psychological and emotional aspects affect you physically. So you really have to look at the whole picture. All aspects are important. So in our practice, I use this model. It's called an energy model, and it was developed first by Hannah Kroger. Now Hannah Kroger, I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she had the first herb store in the country in Colorado. She moved to the United States from Europe after World War II, and she was going to heal America. So she started the first herb store in Colorado many, many years ago. And then her model was later enhanced and perfected by Dr. Ginger Bowler. So I love this model because basically what you can infer from here, if you look at this and imagine that everything is energy and everything has a vibration or a frequency, and then you can look at this continuum and think about it on a continuum. So you see that line, everything above the line is a faster, higher frequency that's going to make you healthier. Everything below the line is a slower, denser, heavier energy frequency that's going to make you less healthy. And then again, it includes all aspects. Now, of course, God, the divine, that's the essence, the epitome, and not to reduce that to an energy frequency. But if you're thinking about the energy model, that's the be-all and end-all, is the divine. So, and then again, put in there whatever term you're comfortable with, whether it's, whatever it is, divine, God, whatever. So, what we're going to talk about now for the next few minutes, excuse me, is how to raise your vibration. In other words, how to make you healthy from a body, mind, and spirit aspect. So first, let's look at physical health. And we're going to focus on how we can raise our vibration physically. Diet and exercise are two of the biggest, most important ways to enhance your vibration. And I know there's a lot, I looked through the syllabus and the other talks that you're being exposed to, so there's a lot on exercise. I love seeing that. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on exercise, but we'll talk about some things that are important in terms of diet. Now it blows me away that there is a huge disconnect because people don't even realize that whatever you eat or drink becomes your body. And so many times there's a disconnect that people aren't thinking about what they're putting into this temple, this body of ours, and thinking about how it's going to affect us. So, you know, you want to, right off the bat, take away any toxic foods, take out any things that are going to not be healthy and help your vibration. So start with those. So one of those, of course, is sugar. Now, years ago, it used to be, in the early 1900s, the average American consumed 5 pounds of sugar a year. And now that average is 150 pounds of sugar a year. I mean, that's crazy to think about. How have we become so addicted to sugar? Well, when we look at the trends in health, unfortunately, in the mid-80s, remember how the Heart Association said, oh my gosh, we got to get rid of fat? Fat is contributing to heart disease, and it's making our cholesterols go up. Get rid of fat. So the food industry took out the fat, and what did they replace it with? Sugar. And now we know, 20, 40 years later, this was a big mistake, because now the obesity problem is worse. We're seeing liver problems in the hospital that look like fatty liver disease, exactly like we used to see with alcohol, except that people aren't drinking alcohol, they're coming in with the same symptoms, and it's sugar. So again, it's so important to get rid of sugar out of your diet. Also, processed foods. When we were growing up, we had very little exposure to processed foods. Maybe, 3 to 10% of the foods we ate came out of the box or were processed. And now if you look at teenagers, some teens today, 75 or 80% of their diet are processed foods. So again, this is just something to take a look at and to think about. So artificial sweeteners, these have been shown to be neurotoxic. Some can even have even been tied to causing cancer. So again, we want to think about this. Do we really want to put this into our body? So high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oils, these are all things that are not going to raise your vibration to the healthiest level. Yes?
What about salt?
Salt, that's a really great question. Because much of the processed foods have very high sodium levels. So yes, that's important to look at. Because of course increased salt can lead to high blood pressure. So yes, it's better. Fresh is going to always be best. We always say the closer you can eat to God, the better. So fresh foods are going to be the best. But yes, sodium is important to watch. Thank you for asking that question. This is a website, because if you think about what we're exposed to environmentally, this is also something to consider. The EWG, which is a website that stands for the Environmental Working Group, and on their website, EWG.org, they list all kinds of products, and they rate them. The ones that are rated number 1 are going to be the best, and they rate them all the way down to number 7, which is not so good for you. Now, what's important about this is that in Europe, there's 1,000 chemicals that are banned from being used. Of that same list of 1,000, only 11 are banned in the United States. So again, we're seeing so many instances of infertility, autoimmune diseases, and when we start looking at what we're exposed to in our body, mind, and spirit, there's many things we can do to impact how to clean up what we're exposed to around us. So I highly recommend to check out the website, the ewg.org. Even like skincare products. So if you think about this, this is something we're putting on our face or our skin every single day. And if it's got a toxic substance in it, and we're exposing ourselves to that every single day, you can imagine that can cause an issue over time. So how many have been told by your provider to eat healthy? What does that mean? So, does that mean you should give up fat? Does that mean get rid of all sugar? Which, we already said sugars. We certainly don't need 150 pounds a year of sugar. What about gluten? How many people are avoiding gluten? What about a paleo diet? Which means you give up most grains and you pretty much do some fruit, but mostly vegetables, meat, and fat. What about the ketogenic diet, which is a little bit more extreme than the paleo diet? You're getting about 40 to 50% fat, some protein, and no carbohydrates. So how do you know what's healthy? It's a really good question. I did a little spoof, I did a little video that one evening that said, okay, here I'm ready to eat dinner. Oh wait, I can't eat this chicken because according to Dr. Esselstyn, it should be a plant-based diet. Oh wait, I'm gluten-free, so he took off the bread. Oh wait, this zucchini and tomato medley, you can't eat that because Dr. Gundry says the plant paradox, you can't eat lectins. And then he took off the rice because, you can't eat that on the paleo. So I ended up, I had a little cup of blueberries, and I said, oh wait, this still has fructose in it, which could be a lot. So I poured 5 blueberries on my plate and said, okay, I'm ready to eat. So, you can take it to extreme, but the real question, what is a healthy diet? And even beyond that, what is a healthy diet for me? Because everybody's body system is different. So the good news is that now we know one diet does not fit all. So it's very important to understand that everybody's body system is different, and what's good for you may or may not be good for me, because everybody's body system is different. So I've been privileged to work with a nurse practitioner in California, Pam McDonald. She has done a ton of research on the APOE gene. This is a gene that you can test, and literally it will tell what diet is healthy for your genetic genotype. The APOE gene, this gene was just discovered in the late 1970s. And there's 3 allele types of the APOE. There's a 2, a 3, and a 4. Since we get one allele type from each parent, then everybody has a pair. So that you can see you would fall into one of 6 combinations. 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 3, 3, 3, 4, or 4, 4. Now, why this is relevant and how this discovery was so profound is because each of these allele types are associated with a different protein structure. What that means, for instance, if you have a 2 in your genotype, 2, the protein structure associated with the 2 is cysteine. Well, cysteine is fueled by healthy fat. So obviously, if you have a 2, 2, or 2, 3, you need more healthy fat than the average person. If you have a 4 in your genotype, 4, the protein structure is arginine. This protein structure has a very difficult time clearing fats and cholesterol. So if you had a 4-3 or 4-4 APOE and you did a ketogenic diet, your cholesterol is going to shoot through the roof. So this is why one diet doesn't fit all, and why this science is so profound, because then we can do your APOE and know what diet is going to be helpful for your genetic mapping. So we do this test frequently in our office, and then we give people a diet based on their results. Now, the testing is simply done either by a cheek swab or a blood test. And now Pam has developed an online program so that you can get she has a 16-week program, and that includes getting your APOE testing done. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. The program, it's 16 weeks, but it's so comprehensive and so good about teaching you every step of nutrition, from what we mentioned in the toxicity, all of that. She goes through all of that, and then gives you the diet to follow for your genetics. Yes.
Has this program been tested? Actual tests, scientific tests?
Yes, yes. There's been a lot of research on it, and as a matter of fact, there's a ton of research on the APOE in terms of 4-3 and 4-4, because there's a higher incidence of Alzheimer's disease with if you have 4-3 or 4-4. You can imagine if you have a difficult time clearing fats and cholesterol, then you also have a hard time clearing other chemicals and metals, which they are now seeing a connection in Alzheimer's with things like aluminum, so that, again, the APOE is very relevant in terms of the Alzheimer's research. Yes. Pam McDonald. Yeah. And if you just Google APOE, especially if you Google APOE online program, then it pops right up.
Was that a book that you showed?
Yes, she has a book called The Perfect Gene Diet. Yes. Are any of you all from Louisville? Okay, because we do have the book. We have her book in our office here in town. So, if you're interested in that. But you can get the book easily from Amazon. So. Yes, she asked about the 16-week online program. She takes you step by step for 16 weeks to how to understand the results and the diet and the healthy food options. Yes. And you had a question back there? I'll get to you.
Okay.
Can you get your APOE tested by your doctor in blood work?
That's a really, really great question. Yes, there are multiple ways to test your APOE because, many companies are jumping on board on this. When we do the blood test for the APOE, we do it anonymously because what we found, obviously the country now has adopted that you can't cancel someone's insurance based on health data, but we found that life insurance policies were being canceled with some results. Especially, if you have the 4-3 or 4-4 that has a higher incidence of Alzheimer's. So we choose to test it anonymously. So we only send in a number. We don't even send in the patients. So obviously we don't use an insurance company to test it because if you use your insurance, then they have access to your health information. So not all physician offices are, they don't all do the blinded testing. So, you just have to weigh all that into your decision of how you want to test it. Some genetic tests now, like Genetworks, 23andMe, they used to run the platform that you could get your APOE from the 23andMe raw data, but they've since changed their platform, so you can't get the APOE from that anymore, which is disappointing. But Genetworks and some of the other genetic tests are including the APOE, so you just have to investigate. So, and then you had a question, and then I'll get to you.
Do you provide insurance in your office?
We do. We do.
How much is that?
To test the APOE gene is $300. And then if you wanted to do the online program, then it's $299, so it comes out the same cost if you do all of it for $5.99, or if you separate and do the testing first and then. So yes. You had a
So
question?
you said the alternative was like a swab. test.
Yes.
Can you return that in to be tested?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, his question is, can you use a cheek swab? And that is an option. So when you do her online program, she sends you a kit that includes the cheek swab, and then you send it back to her. She has a company that does the cheek swab test. So it does not have to be a blood test. It can be either one. And that cheek swab test is all bundled into her $599 package to do everything. The 16-week program and the cheek swab test.
So you can just do the cheek swab.
Yes. So when we counsel people on a healthy diet, we believe that all three macronutrients, meaning carbohydrates, fats, and protein, all three are important. So a balanced diet is going to include all three. And when you look at this slide, then you can kind of see, you can obviously see they each do a different thing in the body and why all three macronutrients are important. Carbohydrates, and of course carbohydrates are going to include what? What's the carbohydrate? Bread, cereal, grains, starches. But what are the most important carbohydrates?
Sugar.
Vegetables, fruit and vegetables. This is a real important carbohydrate. So sometimes people don't always think of that as a carbohydrate, but those are the best, the most important carbohydrates. So you don't want to forget about that. Carbohydrates have the most impact on your blood sugar. So you may have heard people refer to things as glycemic index or low glycemic. Then what your glycemic just means what impact a food is going to have on your blood sugar. So because carbohydrates have the most spike on your blood sugar, you want to choose things that are going to have the least impact on your blood sugar. So that's why whole grains or less processed grains are going to be lower glycemic than something that's highly processed. So when you look at protein, protein doesn't have near the impact on your blood sugar that carbohydrates do, and it's going to give you a longer fuel source. So this is going to last 3 to 4 hours instead of carbohydrates, which is a short-term fuel source that only lasts about an hour and a half. And then fats, you see, minimal impact on your blood sugar, yet this lasts 11 to 12 hours. So this is why healthy fats are so important in our diet, because it is our long-term fuel source. And if you do a combination, then that way you're giving your body a fuel source where you're going to feel energetic all day long without the slips and dips in your energy level. And when it's balanced, you actually increase your metabolism, so you can also eat all day long and not gain weight. Actually, sometimes people lose weight because they're burning calories more efficiently. So, doesn't that sound like good news? Eat all day and don't gain weight. So when we look at the three macronutrients, just in a nutshell, when you look at carbohydrates, you want to eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. And we combine these together, but you want to do about 3/4 vegetables and 1/4 fruit. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, the fruit sugar, the fructose, you don't want to just have all fruit. You want to make sure you're balancing out with vegetables. And then, as we mentioned, choose grains that are going to be low glycemic. So, and try to minimize your sugar. If you can keep it under 10 grams a day, that's awesome. So, all right, proteins, and I'm going through this kind of quickly because I know you've had some other, I believe you've had some other talks on nutrition. But proteins, remember that proteins are not all meat. So proteins, you can get really good sources of protein from beans and legumes. For instance, 1 cup of black lentils provides 60 grams of protein. So So this is a great source of protein. So it doesn't always have to be meat, chicken, or red meat. So make sure that you include some healthy proteins. Yes, sir?
Yeah, on the legumes, you get a certain amount of carbohydrates from that also,
That's exactly correct.
which can be good or bad.
That's correct. So when we do our diet, we give people a food plan. That's the one thing that's counted in two categories are the legumes. They're counted as both the starch and the protein. So we balance those out so that you're, we can give you exactly how many servings for you and for your caloric need, what you would need. So that's a very excellent question. Thank you. Yes? Yes, she asked about eating salmon or tuna raw. Is that going to have the same nutrition? Yes, it's still counted as a protein. That's just a personal like if you want to eat it raw. But fish is an excellent protein, and it provides a lot of the omega-3s, which is the healthy fat. So fish is a great protein. I highly recommend it. And then fats. You definitely want to make sure you include the healthy fats. Keep in mind, though, that the amount is going to be very important because fats have more than twice as many calories per gram as carbohydrate and protein. So again, you just got to balance that. When we talk about one serving of fats, we're talking about 6 almonds. Not 6 handfuls. 6 almonds as 1 count of your healthy fat. So again, it may not be the amount of what you're expecting. Avocado, this is one of the healthiest fats that you can do, so we highly recommend that. But 1/8 of avocado is 1 count of fat. It's not the whole avocado, that would be 8 grams of fat. Way too much. So keep that in mind. We do include this healthy food choice list. Now, all of these slides are going to be available to you, so you'll have access to this. But if you want the specific handout for the healthy food choice list, just let me know and I can email it to you. Just keep in mind it is copyrighted by Pam McDonald. This is her work from her APOE gene diet. So it's for your personal use only. But I'm happy to send it to you if you would like a copy. Because this will show you what volume of food constitutes 1 count for that particular category. So it's for instance, a half a cup of cooked oatmeal. Not before you start with dried oatmeal that's going to turn into 4 cups. So again, the volume is really important. So let's talk for a minute about GMOs. How many are familiar with genetically modified organisms? Good. So a lot of people are familiar with that. This is very important. Now, of course, the biotech companies will argue that there's no problem, that we've been genetically modifying things for years. And part of that is true. Because, maybe you take a red rose and then you cross it with a white rose and come out with a pink rose. So there's nothing wrong when you're using the same phenotypes to genetically modify it or cross it. But when you take, for instance, salmon, and then you take the DNA of salmon and you combine that with the DNA of the red tomato, just so the salmon turns out a pinker color, we don't even know the ramifications of manipulating the DNA to that degree. So, and we have seen that many of the genetically modified organisms are modified so that they grow their own pesticides. And what we found is that these pesticides are effective against some bugs, but it also can affect humans' stomach. You have a question?
Not really, I just disagree with you.
Okay. Well, you know, it's fine. We can agree to disagree.
Just wanted to say that there's another side to this.
Yes, yes, which I respect that. All I can tell you is that from a medical standpoint, I see patients over and over who come in with many autoimmune issues, such as allergies, infertility, many different autoimmune issues. We clean up their diet, they get off of genetically modified organisms, they change their diet to include only organic versions of the top GMOs, and many of their symptoms disappear. So I'm just presenting one view from the medical perspective. And I do respect, I know there's many different views on this.
I wouldn't say I like all of them.
Excuse me?
I don't say I like all of them.
Yes. So, how do you know the difference between a genetically modified and an organic? How do you know the difference between something that's grown conventionally versus organic?
The label.
The label. So what does the label mean to you?
Well, you hope that it means that they didn't use pesticides in the product.
Correct.
I use it.
Yes. If it's organic, then they have not used pesticides. Yes.
Technically wrong. They can use certain, like rotenone or whatever pesticides, which are not nice. It should be limited.
Well, don't they have to be certified organic?
Yes.
There is, at least in California, you have to be certified that it is
That is
organic.
correct. You can't put an organic label on there unless you are certified organic.
Yeah.
So, organic will have the barcode of the number 9. It starts with the number 9. If it's grown conventionally, it will start with the barcode number 4. So that's one way to distinguish if something is organic or if it's conventionally grown. So, do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, and I need to say, I have a garden at home. Oh, I farm for a living. Got 2,000 acres of corn, 1,000 acres of soybeans. And the garden at home tends to be organic. The other stuff is not. And basically, it's organic because I do not like pesticides, i.e. insecticides and fungicides on what I eat. Easy way of putting it is the only difference between you and a bug is size.
I agree with that.
If it'll kill a bug, it'll kill you.
I totally agree with that, and I think that's where we can agree
Oh, yeah.
with the
Easily.
pesticides. So, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
8 is GMO.
Yes, yeah, although I don't talk about that a lot. He asked about the number 8, because the number 8 implies that it's genetically modified. I don't see that often. In our grocery store, we typically just see 9 or 4. So I don't see the 8 label very often. So, but, yeah, we're going to talk about that. She asked about autoimmune, and we're going to talk about that. Yes,
Yeah.
sir?
Just a comment on the 8.
Yes.
The biggest use of GMO stuff is soybeans,
Yes.
and you won't see that listed as an 8, and they're in almost everything. So, yeah, you do that.
That's exactly why I have this slide up here. The top genetically modified are corn, soy, canola, and sugar beets. Now you may say, well, I don't ever eat sugar beets. But if you're eating sugar, sugar is 50% refined sugar and 50% sugar beets. So you are getting exposed to sugar beets if you're eating sugar. So what we recommend is if you're going to consume any of the top genetically modified organisms, corn, soy, canola, and sugar, that these need to be organic. And we do see a difference in people's health when they follow that. So,
What's going on with the Hawaiian flag
we don't see that so much here, so I don't focus on that, but that is in the list of the top 9. We pretty much have people focus on those top 4. And part of the reason, and maybe you can comment on this, but with pesticides, one of the biggest pesticides that's used is glyphosate, which is a component in Roundup Ready. And we definitely have seen health issues with the use of glyphosate. Glyphosate is an endocrine disruptor, and it destroys that gut lining. So this is where we've seen so many issues, is in the gastrointestinal tract, especially with overexposure to pesticides, which, I think glyphosate is a big contender. Yes?
The use of glyphosate, to my understanding, as a herbicide, is relatively safe when it's used just as a weed killer. But when plants are GMO modified to resist the glyphosate does not come in contact with the ground, and therefore stays around a lot longer, and it gets into our food chain. But by itself, it's a relatively benign chemical and very useful. It's just that we've abused.
That's controversial. I'll just say
Can I
that.
comment? Yeah, it is controversial, and it's also wrong. Okay? Number one, it's right on the plant. When it touches the ground, it combines with clay particles and is relatively inert. Number two, it is a carcinogen, but it's really mild. And the stuff it replaces are not mild carcinogens. So yes, it is safer than the stuff it replaces. Is it safe totally? No.
There's a lot of medical articles to show the ill effects of glyphosate in terms of being an endocrine disruptor. It's also been identified in fetuses in newborn tissue, which it's not supposed to be able to cross barriers. So there's a lot of information that I think still needs to come out of it. In the meantime, kind of the alarming things, and this is where you can't make a causal relationship, but it does beg the question. Because this slide, even though you can't see all the detail, glyphosate came into the market, heavily used in 1997. So this shows many health illnesses and the incidence since 1997. The top right is the increase in liver cancer. The bottom left is an increase in acute kidney injury. The bottom right is an increase in diabetes. And again, there's many factors that go into that, so you can't make a causal relationship, but it begs the question, do we need to do more research to determine what is safe and what is not? And I think we can probably all agree on that. So, and then you asked, Angie, about the autoimmune issues and what impact potentially GMOs, etc., have on the gastrointestinal tract. So this picture shows what a normal villi, it shows examples of villi in the small intestine. And our whole small intestine, 25 feet of it, are lined with these villi. And they each have immune cells to help protect us. So anything we eat or drink, anything we take in, goes through the GI tract, and these cells present a barrier so that we can absorb the nutrients and the rest goes on down the line to be excreted. But what happens when our food is unhealthy or toxic to us, then those barriers become damaged. And now, many proteins can leak back into the system. You've probably heard the term leaky gut, so that's what this implies. And when you have a leaky gut and proteins are being absorbed back into the bloodstream, that sets off an inflammatory reaction. And so now the body will create antibodies against that offending protein or whatever particle is leaked back into the system. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. However, sometimes those proteins look like normal, healthy tissue. So then instead of just limiting the destruction to these proteins that have leaked back in, it also takes out normal, healthy tissue. And that's the whole basis of autoimmune diseases, because your body ends up attacking itself. And we do see a connection with, the pesticide usage, with GMOs, with autoimmune illnesses. So, these things such as rheumatoid arthritis, there's many autoimmune diseases, the thyroiditis, where you have thyroid issues because of an inflammatory component. So there's many health issues that we see. And I put this in here just to, again, look at the consequences and to do more research so that we can see what are the connections with autoimmune diseases. So. Now, if you want to, the Environmental Working Group, every year they post a list of what's called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So Dirty Dozen foods, these are foods that do have a high degree of pesticide usage. So with these, many of our patients choose to, if they're going to use these, which these are great foods, you don't want to eliminate, but they choose to do organic versions of the Dirty Dozen foods. Because this is going to be things like blueberries, spinach, grapes, apples. So things that are kind of porous where pesticides could be leached into the food system. You may want to think about doing an organic version. The Clean 15, on the other hand, these are foods that don't have a high pesticide usage with them, so that you could buy these conventionally grown. So, and many of these, for instance, like avocado or grapefruit, have a thick skin on it, so you can see that that could be a barrier in and of itself to some pesticides. So, very important to move your body. And I am so excited to see how many talks there were through the conference on exercise and movement, because again, that's very important.
A question before
Yes.
we get exercises on.
Yeah.
Is there any studies done on like water and water systems and what's in water? That usually the bottles all over.
There are, and he asked about water, and if there's studies on that. And yes, I think that, again, that's a very important aspect to look at. Many of our patients choose to use a water filter system that's going to help filter any fluoride or any contaminants from the water. In Louisville, we're pretty lucky because pretty much our water system is pretty clean. In fact, it's bottled and given to many other communities. But I do think a water filter is a good idea. Again, if you have specific questions about that, we can talk afterwards. So these are all ways to raise your vibration physically. So pay attention to what you eat. Don't go too many hours without eating. You want to make sure that you always eat breakfast. How many of you all have a habit of skipping breakfast? Breakfast literally stands for breaking the fast. So it's really important that you jumpstart your metabolism with breakfast, with healthy foods. Otherwise, it's like trying to drive your car without any gas. You've got to have a fuel source for your body to work on. And then, pay attention to what food you're eating. Choose whole, healthy, clean food. Stay away from anything that has no nutritional value, like candy or sugar, or at least limited. Drink plenty of water. Sleep. Make sure that you're getting a good 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And then take time to relax your body and also exercise. So this is how you can raise your vibration physically. So So any questions about that? I do have a book, so I go into much more detail in the book if you want more information about it. Go into the next phase, raising your vibration emotionally and psychologically. And again, this is very important. We don't want to ignore this part. Your brain, all your thoughts start in the frontal cortex. The frontal cortex is connected to the hypothalamus in the brain, and the hypothalamus then triggers the pituitary gland, which is the master gland of the body. So literally, your thoughts create a whole chemical event. So this is why you want to pay attention to your thoughts, because you may have to, what I call, change your stinking thinking. Because you want to make sure, because remember, whether your thoughts are positive or negative, that's going to create a chemistry in your body respective of which thoughts you have. So again, you just want to have an awareness of that, because your attitude and your thoughts literally become a whole chemical process. So much has been done on stress and how it exacerbates pretty much any disease that we have. So remember that mostly, that one physician even said there's no such thing as stress. There's only people thinking stressful thoughts. So remember, it's not what happens to you, it's our attitude towards what happens. And that is the critical piece. So interestingly, is that the Chinese symbol for crisis is the same symbol as opportunity. So again, that's a very interesting thing to think about, that to look at the big picture when you feel like you're in a crisis or when you think things are going wrong, is to just think about it as an opportunity. And even that shift in your consciousness and your awareness can help you deal with it a little bit better. All right, how many people have seen this before? This is a change in perspective. So good. Most people have. So it all depends on how you look at it, because how you look at things can literally change. Changing the way you look at things can change your perception. So in this picture, if you haven't seen this before, there are two images. There's an image of an older woman and a younger woman. So hopefully you can see both images.
Can you point those out?
Yeah. How many people see the older one?
Yes.
Okay, so the older woman, here's her nose, here's her mouth. The younger woman version, this is her hair, this is a scarf. She's looking over her left shoulder. This is her eyelash, her little nose, and this is her chin line, and this is a necklace. So, everybody see it? Okay. If you don't, I'll show it to you at the end. Now, your past is nothing more than a trail that you've left behind. So what's happened yesterday is over. That doesn't mean we can't learn from the past, because of course we can. I have a cousin, she always says, it's okay to look back, but just don't stare. So I think that's very important, because we can learn from our past, but we don't want to be stuck with it. And keep in mind that the past is just a trail that you've left behind. Think about a boat. It's the wake of the boat, but the wake of the boat does not drive the boat. So again, a very important distinction. The past is what we've left behind. So this is what you can do to raise your vibration psychologically and emotionally. So change your stinking thinking. Always stay above the line. So if you wake up one morning and you're just in a rotten mood, frustrated, things are going wrong, do something. Remember that energy scale. Do something to raise your vibration. That might mean say a prayer. It might mean laugh. Take your phone, look at an app, the joke of the day. Do something to shift that vibration so you can raise your vibration psychologically and emotionally. Remember that fear and excitement are the same energy. So if you feel afraid, I used the example in the previous class. What if you're getting ready to go see your physician and you're afraid of what news you might get? Immediately stop that thought and think, wait a minute, this could be an exciting moment to find out a new way to deal with whatever I have to deal with. So whenever you feel fear, just stop it in its tracks and say, I choose excitement instead. And then just think of, you'll notice a shift in your awareness, and you'll be able to handle things a little easier. One of my teachers was Martha Moore Stevens, and she used to say, let go of the issues in your tissues. And then we added, hold on to the healing feeling instead. So again, just a little shift in perspective can make a huge difference. And my colleague Kimberly always says, if you feel nervous, think of service. So, think about doing something for somebody else so we don't get too bogged down in our own stuff. And last and certainly not least is looking at the spiritual aspect. Because literally we are all spiritual beings having a human experience and not the other way around. Spirit is ultimately the most important thing. And when you look at this, it's not important that you read every line here, but at the very bottom that encompasses most of it, that's the spiritual being. That is the essence. That's the most important thing. We're finally seeing some of this come into the medical world, which is, in my opinion, long overdue. But thankfully, it is coming more and more into the medical world because, again, true health and well-being is a fraction of all three, not just physical and not just psychological and emotional. Have any of you all, are you familiar with Dr. Larry Dossey's work?
Yeah. Really correct. Really
Yes. Yes. Dr. Larry Dossey is a physician out of New Mexico. Brilliant, brilliant internal medicine physician. And he wrote years ago about the eras of medicine. So era 1 was kind of what the conventional medicine has always been based on. A reductionist model where we break everything down to a smaller and smaller piece to find the root cause. So this has been mostly focused on physicality and physical issues. Era 2 medicine, which began in around the 1950s, we finally recognized that our thoughts and emotions sometimes have physical ailment. Psychosomatic things, like if you got nervous and then you got a stomach ache, we finally connected those two things. Era 3 medicine, which in my opinion is the most profound and the most exciting, is that now consciousness is non-local. Now what I mean by that, if you think of that energy model, and you think of everything as an energy or a vibration, how many times have you had the experience where you think of somebody and the next minute they're calling you on the phone? Or, or you run into them and you see them. Have any of you ever had that experience? It's common. And if we start to pay attention to it, what you realize is that thoughts are energy. And those thoughts go into the field, or however you want to define that. It's been defined as the universal field. It's been defined as the mind of God, the essence, quantum physics. It's been defined all these ways. But literally, it shows that our mind, our consciousness, our awareness is not just localized to this physical being. If you're still having trouble conceptualizing that, one way that helps me to conceptualize this is through the work of these authors. All 3 of these authors had a near-death experience. And they had an experience where their essence, their soul, they had an awareness outside of their physical body. Have you ever heard of Dr. Eben Alexander? He's a neurologist who wrote the book Proof of Heaven. He developed meningitis and went into a deep, deep coma for 8 or 9 days, and then wrote a book about his experience. So he was clinically dead, but he experience. Dr. Anita Morjani, her story is really compelling. Her book is called Dying to Be Me. And her story, she developed lymphoma. She had tumors the size of tennis balls on her neck. And she was so sick that she went into a coma. Her family took her to the hospital. She had already gone through chemo, radiation, all the conventional as well as alternative medicine. And then what happened in this space, she had an awareness. She was outside of her body and she saw everything that went on. She could reiterate the whole conversation the physician had with her family to make preparations for her death. All kinds of things in her awareness. And then she remembers meeting her father, who had already crossed over years ago, and he told her, okay, this is as far as you can come unless you don't want to go back. And the next thing she has an awareness of, she's in her hospital bed, and she knew she was going to be okay. And that was 7 years ago. Now she speaks all over the country about this experience. But the profound thing about all three of these is that they all describe the same thing. When they were in that near-death experience, their experience was total, profound love. They can't even put it into words, the description of that profound love. And that is the essence of where we come from and who we are. So again, that's so profound to think about. So, any questions about that? So the way you raise your spiritual vibration, pay attention to the energy. Pay attention to those synchronicities or coincidences, because one of my colleagues calls them God moments or God winks. That's letting you know you're exactly where you're supposed to be at that particular time. There's ways that you can raise your spiritual vibration, literally even through breathing. And one breath work that we love is from Andrew Weil, 4-7-8 breathing. And this is where you inhale to the count of 4, hold it for 7, and then slowly exhale to the count of 8. What this does is helps your body and your mind to relax. It creates a dominance in that parasympathetic nervous system, or that calm, relaxed nervous system, where much healing can take place. Meditation is also a good way to raise your spiritual energy. So be responsible for your thoughts and feelings. Begin each day with gratitude. Take time to pray or meditate. And most of all, appreciate everything that life has to offer. So even Einstein said you can go through life knowing that everything is a miracle or that nothing is a miracle. It's all about our attitude and perspective. Well, I know that our time is up. I did plan to go through some of the therapies that we use in our office. So if you're interested, I can stick around and teach you those. Would you indulge me for about 3 more minutes so that I can teach you one called havening? And if you just can't, it's fine if you need to leave. But I want to show you the havening exercise. Because havening is a very simple technique that you can use, and it's beneficial for any kind of trauma. So we've all had traumas in our lives. We've all had upsets. So, this is a way that you can help with any of those traumas or upsets. So let me get to the slide. And show you the 3. So there's 3 techniques to the havening modality. You use your hands, and the first is just literally rubbing your face. And I'll show you the 3, and then we can all follow along with the exercise. The second is you rub from the top of your shoulders to your elbows. And the third is rubbing the palms of your hand. They found that even neonates did these to self-soothe. So it's very interesting that these are the 3 techniques that are included. So I'm going to lead you through what's called informations. So it's slightly different than affirmations because it's informations. So the what if. All right, so just close your eyes and then do any of these 3 that feel good to you. If you want to continue to rotate, that's fine. So there's 3 statements that go to the informations. So the first one is even though. And you just say what's so. Even though it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon and my butt is tired of sitting here, I'm going to go through this process. And you can say anything. Tomorrow morning you wake up and you say, even though, this has been a long weekend, look at everything that I've learned, look at all the connections I've made. What if is the second phase. So what if I learned something through this conference that's going to significantly improve my health? What if I find a way to support my body, my mind, and my soul and spirit that's really going to benefit me? And the third one is I'd love to find out, and then you just let your imagination go wild. I'd love to find out what that would feel like. Maybe I would wake up with less pain, more mobility, more energy. I'd love to find out what that would feel like. Maybe I could do more for myself, take some pressure off my caregivers. And you just let your imagination go and you fill in the blanks. And the 4th thing that I always add is bring it on now. So while you're doing these techniques, just really, even though you just say what's so, what if, just let your imagination go, I'd love to find out. Bring it on now. All right, thank you so much. As I said,
You said you could provide the healthy food choices. How do we go about getting that from you?
just come and tell me your name. Your email address is on this list that I have, so I'll just send it to you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes,
I'm curious as to why you left olive oil off of that list.
it's on the list. Yeah, it is. Definitely it's on the list. Olive oil is a great oil. Yes, grapeseed also has higher smoke point, so you can use it in higher heats.
Fried.
Yes, 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 yes.
Swimming is a good exercise, but I heard that
It's a great exercise.
But I also heard that the chemical in the water also like kind of not good for your skin, and I have the Myositis, which is about skin. So
A lot of pools are using salt water. They're not using the chemicals. So that would be good. Yes. Salt water instead of chlorine. Yeah, that would be great. Salt water.
Can I ask you real quick?
Sure.
A friend of mine, I was talking to a friend of mine because I just was diagnosed with prostate cancer, low grade, and I had ran into a friend the other day and we were talking about it. He goes, hey, you need to talk to me because my neighbor down the street sold me some natural herbs or some dang thing, and he said my cancer's gone now. So do you have any thought on that? I know there's some.
Well, there's a lot of different
I know there's
things.
lots of stuff out there.
Yeah,
right?
but there's been a lot of research on prostate.
Okay.
There's a product called Zyflamand,
Zyflamand?
and it's an anti-inflammatory, and it's been so successful they literally made one just for prostate.
Oh,
So it's Zyflamand prostate.
really?
So we're recommending that significantly.
really?
Also, too, you got to get off dairy. Dairy,
what?
dairy,
Oh, really?
milk, cheese,
Oh,
ice
really?
cream. You got to get rid of that.
Oh, really?
Yes, that is a huge contributor to prostate
Oh,
cancer.
seriously?
Yes.
All dairy
And so
stuff.
they're recommending soy milk, but again, it's got to be organic soy.
Organic. You get
Yeah.
rid of the no pesticide stuff.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly. And the best soy milk that we found is called West Soy,
West soy?
unsweetened organic. It's West Soy is one word, but the ingredients are filtered water and organic soybeans. That's it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Better than
almond milk or?
I like soy milk better because soy milk has 9 grams of protein. Almond milk has 1 gram.
Alrighty, so
it's really better for the protein. Yeah, but it has to be organic.
It's the Myositis Association, helping patients become peers now for the past 25 years. So if you have been diagnosed, here's an organization to unite us. 8,000 members they can boast. That real strange word that no one's heard, it's myositis. There's an annual patient conference which is just second to none, where you'll learn a lot and network, and you'll also have some fun. And their website is updated with a lot of current news, with lots of info and resources and much more that you can use, like info TMA compiles, and like lists of clinical trials and lists of research too. You can review because it's all there for you. So hooray for the group TMA. It's the Myositis Association, helping patients become peers now for the past 25 years. So if you have been diagnosed, here's an organization to unite us. A quarter century they can boast. They've been the group that's got the scoop on myositis.